The day my own son told me I was too old to run the company I had built with my own hands, I didn't argue. I didn't remind him that 43 years earlier, the business had started in the corner of a rented warehouse with nothing but one pickup truck, a toolbox, and a dream. I didn't tell him about the nights his mother and I slept in the office because we couldn't afford both rent and payroll. Instead, I quietly stood up, handed him my office keys, and walked out. As the elevator doors closed, I heard him laughing with the board members. One of them said, "The old man should have retired years ago." They all laughed. None of them noticed I still owned 51% of the company. And none of them imagined I'd be back the following Monday, wearing a janitor's uniform. My name is William Anderson, and this is the story of how my own son told me I was too old to run my company, until I applied for a job there under a fake name and discovered the truth hiding behind every office door. 43 years earlier. There was no Anderson Technologies. There was only me. A tiny rented warehouse. One folding desk. And a second-hand pickup truck that barely started on cold mornings. My wife, Margaret, believed in me before anyone else did. While I repaired industrial machines during the day, she handled invoices at night. Some evenings we'd count the last few dollars in our checking account and wonder if we'd survive another month. But we made one promise. No employee would ever miss a paycheck because of our problems. Sometimes that meant we skipped our own. Those people trusted us. And trust was worth more than profit. Years passed. The little repair shop became one warehouse. Then two. Then factories. Eventually, Anderson Technologies became one of the largest industrial automation companies in Ohio. More than 1,200 employees. Contracts across the country. Awards. Recognition. Everything I once dreamed about. When my son, Daniel, graduated from business school, I couldn't have been prouder. He was intelligent. Confident. Ambitious. Exactly the kind of leader the company would eventually need. I hired him like everyone else. Entry-level. No executive office. No special treatment. I wanted him to earn respect. Not inherit it. For several years. He did exactly that. Employees liked him. Managers respected him. I truly believed he would become an even better leader than I had ever been. Then success changed him. It didn't happen overnight. It happened one promotion at a time. One luxury car. One expensive suit. One magazine interview. Gradually, he stopped talking about employees. He started talking about numbers. People became payroll expenses. Loyalty became efficiency. Experience became age. Whenever we discussed layoffs, I asked, "How many families will this affect?" Daniel asked, "How much will shareholders gain?" That difference worried me. 3 months before my 68th birthday, the board held its annual strategy meeting. Halfway through the presentation, Daniel stood up, smiled politely, then looked directly at me. "Dad, I think it's time." I frowned. "Time for what?" He took a deep breath. "For retirement." The room became uncomfortably quiet. "I appreciate everything you've done. But business moves faster now. We need younger leadership." Several board members nodded. One even avoided making eye contact with me. Daniel continued. "People your age shouldn't have the stress of running billion-dollar companies." I quietly asked, "So, you think I'm too old?" He smiled. "I think you've earned the right to step aside." I looked around the room. Every face remained silent. Nobody defended me. Not one person. I slowly removed my company badge. Placed it on the conference table. Then calmly said, "I hope you're right." I stood. Walked out. And never looked back. At least, that's what everyone believed. The next morning, I called my attorney. "Has anything changed regarding company ownership?" He laughed softly. "No. You still own 51%. I smiled. "Good." Then I called an old friend. Frank Miller. He had managed our maintenance department for 28 years before retiring. I asked him one question. If someone wanted to work here without being recognized, What job would nobody pay attention to? He laughed. The night janitor. 3 days later. I shaved my beard. Dyed my grey hair. Put on thick glasses. Wore old work boots. And filled out an online application using my middle name. Michael Bennett. Age. 62. Previous occupation. Maintenance supervisor. 3 days after that. Human resources called. The interview lasted exactly 12 minutes. Nobody recognized me. The young HR manager barely looked at my resume. She smiled politely. We're short on custodial staff. When can you start? I answered. Monday. Monday morning arrived. For the first time in 43 years. I entered my own company through the employee entrance. No reserved parking. No executive office. No one greeting me. Just another worker carrying a mop bucket. As I walked through the production floor, something immediately felt wrong. Machines sat idle. Employees looked nervous. Nobody smiled. This wasn't the company Margaret and I had built. During my lunch break, I quietly sat beside an older machinist. He looked exhausted. I asked, "Busy day?" He laughed bitterly. "Busy. We've lost 50 people this month." I frowned. "Layoffs?" He nodded. They said profits weren't high enough. I knew something he didn't. Profits had reached record highs the previous quarter. So why were people losing their jobs? That evening, as I emptied trash bins outside the executive offices, I heard Daniel speaking inside the boardroom. The door wasn't fully closed. Cut another 80 positions. We'll announce it next week. Another voice asked, "What about employee bonuses?" Daniel laughed. "Cancelled. The savings will improve executive compensation." I froze. 43 years. 43 years of protecting employees. And in less than 6 months, everything had changed. Just then, one of the executives said something that made my blood run cold. "What if your father finds out?" Daniel laughed again. "He won't. He's gone." I quietly picked up my mop, walked away, and smiled. Because for the first time, I knew exactly how I was going to save my company. The next morning, I walked back into my company wearing the same blue janitor's uniform. Nobody looked at me twice. After 43 years of building Anderson Technologies, I had become invisible. And for the first time, that was exactly what I needed. As I pushed my cleaning cart through the engineering department, I noticed something strange. Employees weren't talking about new projects. They were talking about leaving. One young engineer quietly whispered, "I've already updated my resume." Another replied, "I'm just waiting for one more offer." That sentence hurt more than I expected. People once dreamed of working here. Now, they were dreaming about escaping. For the next 2 weeks, I cleaned offices during the day. And listened. I heard everything. Managers were being pressured to fire experienced workers because younger employees accepted lower salaries. Safety inspections were being postponed. Employee training budgets had been eliminated. Christmas bonuses. Gone. Health benefits. Reduced. Meanwhile, executive salaries had quietly increased by almost 40%. Every decision was perfectly legal, but completely against everything this company stood for. One evening, while emptying the recycling bins outside Daniel's office, I noticed a stack of confidential financial reports lying on his desk. The cleaning crew had already left. No one else was nearby. I didn't touch the papers. I simply looked. And what I saw made my stomach turn. A proposal titled, "Executive Leadership Incentive Plan." The first paragraph read, "Projected savings through workforce reduction. $30 million. The final page listed executive bonus payments. Daniel's name appeared at the top. $8.2 million. The same week, 80 families were about to lose their jobs. I quietly walked away. Because now, I knew this wasn't bad leadership. It was greed. The following Friday, Something unexpected happened. As I cleaned the employee cafeteria, a young woman approached me. She smiled kindly. "Sir, you forgot your lunch." She handed me the sandwich I had accidentally left on a table. Her name tag read, Sarah Mitchell. Customer support. Probably 26 years old. She reminded me of my wife. Always noticing people everyone else overlooked. She sat beside me. "You've worked hard today." I smiled. "So have you." She laughed. "Not according to management." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She quietly looked around. Then whispered, "My department won the highest customer satisfaction award in company history." I smiled proudly. "That's wonderful." She nodded. "We all thought so." Then yesterday, they eliminated our performance bonuses. I stared at her. "Did they explain why?" She laughed bitterly. "They said, the company needs everyone to make sacrifices." She stood up, picked up her tray, then quietly added, "Funny how only employees are asked to sacrifice." She walked away. I sat there for a long time, thinking. Margaret and I used to eat lunch with employees every Friday. We knew their children's names, their birthdays, their struggles. Daniel knew spreadsheets, not people. That weekend, I called my attorney. "I need an emergency board meeting." He immediately understood. "You have evidence?" I quietly answered, "I have enough. But first, I want the board to hear it from the employees." Monday morning, I arrived early, before anyone else. Then I did something no one expected. I personally invited 12 employees from different departments to attend the board meeting. Not executives. Not managers. The people actually building the company every day. Most looked confused. But they agreed. At exactly 10 o'clock, the board meeting began. Daniel stood confidently at the front of the room. A large screen displayed one sentence. Record quarterly profits. He smiled proudly. "Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the most profitable year in company history." Applause filled the room. Then he continued. "To remain competitive, I recommend eliminating another 80 positions." Several directors nodded. One raised his hand. "What about employee morale?" Daniel smiled. "They'll adapt." That was enough. I quietly opened the boardroom door, still wearing my janitor's uniform. Daniel looked irritated. "Excuse me. This meeting is private." I smiled. "I know." He frowned. "Then leave." Instead, I slowly removed my glasses, pulled off my grey wig, then wiped the temporary dye from my beard with a towel. The room became completely silent. One director stood up. Another dropped his pen. Daniel's face turned completely white. "Dad." I calmly walked to the head of the conference table, the chair I had occupied for 25 years. Then I quietly sat down. Nobody spoke. Finally, I looked around the room, then said, "I believe this meeting belongs to me." My attorney entered carrying several binders. Behind him walked the 12 employees, Sarah among them. Daniel looked stunned. "What is this?" I calmly answered, "The people whose company you almost destroyed." Then I placed one document on the table. The company's shareholder register. I tapped the final page. "You asked me to retire." I did. But I never resigned. And I certainly never stopped owning this company. I looked directly at every board member. My name still controls. 51%. Complete silence. Then I stood, turned toward the employees, and quietly said, "For 43 years, this company was built on one promise. No employee would ever lose their job, so an executive could become richer." I looked back at Daniel. "You broke that promise." Daniel slowly stood, his voice shaking. "Dad, I can explain." I nodded. "I hope so. Because in exactly 30 seconds, the board is going to vote. And your future depends on what they decide."